Welcome back to this week's episode. On today's podcast, I welcome on photographer Amanda J. Cain. Amanda is the current team photographer for the Detroit Pistons in the NBA. She's had a really amazing career. Started off her career working in newspapers. Was also the team photographer for the San Jose Sharks in the NHL, and also worked as a university photographer and much more. So I was excited to get her on the podcast and kind of hear about her journey with photography and everything she's accomplished. So I hope you guys enjoy this episode. And also have to give a big thank you to our sponsor, PickDrop. PickDrop is a file transfer tool that was actually founded by working photographers with photographers in mind. You can easily drag and drop your photos into custom galleries and send them securely to your clients via links. And you can track everything in one spot and see who's interacting and making notes on your photos. I've been using it for 5 years now, and the thing I like about it, this kind of streamlines my workflow, and I can communicate with my clients all in one spot and track everything. And another cool thing about PickDrop is they're never going to use your photos for AI training, which a lot of these other companies are doing these days, because they are working photographers themselves and understand what it's like to have their photos stolen. So they would never do that without your permission. And with today's episode, if you use the promo code BANTER, you'll get 2 months free of the PickDrop image transfer tool. So definitely go give it a try. All you got to do is go over to pickdrop.com, enter the promo code BANTER, and just let me know what you guys think. All right, and now welcome on Amanda J. Cain. Long time coming. We've been going back and forth for a while. So excited to have you on the podcast. You've had a really interesting career. You've done a lot of different things. So I was excited to talk to you. But I guess to start off, like, how's the year been going for you so far? I know you're busy with the NBA season right now, but I guess photographically, how's 2026 been for you so far?
Photographically, 2026 has been kind of a mixed bag. I think with seasons in general, um, you kind of get in a rut at times, and it kind of happens. It happens really throughout the career, but it's all part of the journey, right? It's really all learning about how to find the joy when you're in the rut, allowing to, kind of feel the feelings that you're thinking of as you're just trying to figure it out. On the other hand, I would say finding that joy has come from an outside project. My shoe rendition project is, still up and going. I think Sony did a article review back in 2024. That part of it has kind of been revamped. So now I'm kind of diving a little bit more into doing some film photography, doing some spoken word stuff. Had the chance last week to go back to my alma mater and kind of introduce the poetry part of my project, which was interesting to say the least, because I would never like to say that I'm a great in front of camera person, but it's kind of the realm I'm like trending towards is doing more speaking, more teaching, and kind of leaning more towards creative direction.
Is so poetry, is that something you've done for years, or is that kind of a new thing you're kind of dabbling with, or?
I wouldn't say it's new, because as I was describing to the room last week, I took a theater class as my public speaking class in college. And I guess it's just full circle that I don't know, 17 years later, this is what I'm doing. You know what I mean? I felt like public speaking, I think most people, they're like, yeah, I just get public speaking 101 out the way. But I was like, how can I have fun with this? And so the theater class was that, and it kind of got me out of my shyness. Um, so yeah, I think it's been, for me, I would say poetry has really been kind of a passion of mine since my high school days. So yeah, it's just finally time to, I guess, just have the world to see it. I don't know.
No, that's cool. And like, how does that practice work? I've never done poetry. Is it like, or do you like sit down with a pad of paper and just try to start somewhere? Do you start with like an idea, or like how does that kind of formulate with you in the process of making poetry, I guess?
It's very simple because, and most people will be like, I don't know how you do that. At times. I kind of try to write in the moment. So if I'm watching something and something reminds me of something, and I'm like, wait, okay, let's see if I can come up with something for like the recent pair of shoes that I wore. It's just all spontaneous,
Mm.
which is why I enjoy it. I never want to get to a point to where it becomes work because this is something that I still love to do. So that's been kind of the biggest thing for me. I think 2026 is more so kind of stepping out of just the realm of photography. Um, yeah.
No, that's cool. And I guess to go back, like, where do you grow up and how do you kind of first discover photography?
So I grew up in Detroit, Michigan, little city outside of Detroit, East Point. Basically, you can see 8 Mile from my house, so right across the street. But I think I started off as a 2D design type of artist, even in high school. I had drawing classes, I had design classes, and that was like my first introduction into the art world. My dad is a design engineer for GM, and so I would see his drawings of like glove departments and whatnot. And yeah, it just kind of inspired me to just draw, kind of doodle, what most people would say. But went to college, started off as a sports management major. Didn't know what that entailed. And at the time, like in the class, there's like some kind of like stats. And I was like, this is totally not what I want to do. Um, but I knew I wanted to be in sports. So the next thing I tried was education. Um, I shadowed somebody and I was like, yeah, I'm a little too young for this at this point in time. So then I moved into art because one of the courses that kind of propelled me my freshman year was drawing 101. It's a class I had at 8 a.m. in the morning. And I just remember walking across campus, with my big portfolio and whatnot. And that was kind of that, "Oh, okay, this is cool. Can I make a career in art?" It was still uncertain, you know what I mean? So I think that next thing was, okay, so I love 2D design. Someone said, well, why not graphic design? And I said, what? I have no idea. Didn't know any programs. Adobe was very new back in the day. But that was like my introduction to, okay, here are these applications, you know, what can you design or how do you design? And one of my biggest inspirations was Jackson Pollock.
Mm.
Um, so in my early days, I definitely decorated the page. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't anything about simplicity of or designing for whatever the assignment was. It was more so I'm gonna break every rule and decorate the page. And that was cool in college. Obviously, you can't do that in the real world. So my first job was pretty boring. I worked at a newspaper, and across the hall was photojournalist.
I was researching you work with, I think it was somewhere in New Bedford, Mass. It said
Yes.
that
Uh-huh.
which is near me.
Yep.
So that was the newspaper.
Yes, that was the New Bedford Standard Times. Peter Pereira, I think he's still there, is a heck of a photojournalist. But ran into him, ran into the other photographer, and that's kind of how it all started. I knew nothing about photography and having a career in photography. But watching them, I was like, okay, maybe this is possible. If I develop my skills a little bit more. Very raw, obviously, very much fine art to begin with. But, as you start a journey, it's about finding your way. And I think through that first 2, 3 years of my photography, and then moving to Texas and actually getting a full-time job in photography, it was I would say it was a whirlwind. I was young, but you just kind of do whatever until you figure it out. And I did whatever. Music photography was a huge thing for me back in the day. Still love it, just don't get to do it as much anymore. But yeah, I would say just the journey from there in photojournalism, you shoot high school sports all the time. So all those things that I learned in the first couple jobs led up to higher education. Higher education was very much repetition. You're shooting everything. So you're pretty much learning, how to work with the president of the university. And then shooting athletics from time to time, shooting events. The campus beautiful. EKU is known for being the campus beautiful, and I definitely enjoyed my time there. So it just kind of all propelled me to sports,
Yeah.
which is,
Yeah.
the world that I live in today currently. And that is something that, I never imagined in a million years. But also, what I'll sit here and say is most people, I guess, don't realize the level of restrictions when you're working for a professional sports team. Um, Back when I was with the Sharks, we had the AHL team, which at that point was very much, more access. You can do more with the players. I think hockey in general was more access and more kind of the players were very, I wouldn't say always very kind, but very understanding. A lot of them are European, so a lot of them were very funny.
Mm.
You know what I mean? And made life as a photographer very easy. The NBA, a little bit different, I think players have this mantra of like, they're just trying to, get to that next level, whether that's superstardom, whether that's getting out of the G League, you know, all the above. It's like
Well,
they're,
a lot of players now have like their own media teams and photographers, and because I've met a lot of these guys in Boston, and
oh yeah,
yeah, so they all
they
kind of
have quite a bit.
yeah, it's a lot.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, and for those players like a Tatum, Brad does an amazing job
Yeah.
of telling his story kind of in both formats of photo and video.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's
That's cool.
definitely eye-opening and interesting.
Yeah, definitely. And going back to you're studying graphic design in college, like, do you think studying graphic design has helped kind of anything you took from that, like it's been helpful to your photography and everything you kind of do now?
I think so, even though there was a point where I kind of hated it.
Yeah.
Um, I slipped back into it with the last photojournalist job because I was graphic designer, photographer, videographer. And not that I missed it, but I kind of realized at that point, like newspaper graphics weren't going to be my thing.
Yeah.
And if there was a correlation to being a designer again, it would kind of be in the realm of the creative direction. You know what I mean? But I feel like photo and design go hand in hand, and none of that has left my photography. Like you can still see the graphical elements in my
Yeah.
photography.
Yeah.
So I think over time it's just propelled the journey,
Yeah.
essentially.
But
Yeah.
the typography won't talk back to you or have a bad
You know, it's
like a
it's
photography.
very funny. Type is, I mean, it's back in the day there was just a solid class of just typography.
Yeah.
And it was like one of the weirdest things. Like I've, as far as a class that I've taken besides art history, because that was a lot too.
Yeah.
But just learning like the small things and the details, how to make a font, you know
It's
what I mean?
it
Like,
is amazing, especially with like magazines. I've had this myself before where I've taken like one of my mediocre photos and some
yeah.
graphic designer does a really good job with the typography and they can really just make you shine. You know what I mean?
And that's what it is. It's like what's going to get, a team or a company to shine, It's like how does your graphic designers use your photos?
Yeah.
That's always the thing that I'm thinking about. And that's why for me, I shoot basically as a blank canvas, you know what I mean? So that they can go out and add the grunge and filters and whatnot on top of it, as well as the text, so that it's not necessarily in my style because I feel like a lot of photographers, content creators nowadays are doing things in their style,
Hmm.
which is hard to add to if you're a graphic designer. You know what I mean? You're like, okay, well, how do I play around with this? Oh, can I, you know, add some space back? You know what I mean? Like it's a big thing.
Yeah. And are you like a photographer? Do you enjoy editing your work or that process? I know some photographers hate it, some people love it. Like,
I oddly enough, I love it. Um, And I really can't even tell you why I love it. There are times, like most nights from game nights, I'm up till 3 or 4 a.m. And, I'm just plugging away on edits. Yeah, it's just a normal thing. You know what I mean? Like in my mind, I'm like, I seriously don't mind sitting on the couch
Yeah.
with the TV in the background and just plugging away. I most times I enjoy it, sometimes I don't because, depending on if you're traveling, you're tired, you know what I mean? And so that's a hard thing to kind of balance.
Yeah. And I would imagine working for an organization like you work with the Detroit Pistons is there's a lot of different channels within the organization that need photos. It could be the social media team, it could be the marketing team, it could be this. So
Yes.
you're not just working for one person and everyone's coming at you. And this amount of volume you're shooting is this like really impressive in shooting sports. And it's not even just you're shooting the game. I bet you're doing portraiture, you're doing probably branding stuff, all types of things.
Yes, I mean, I would say earlier in the Detroit Pistons career, it was doing a little bit of everything. I think the hard part about winning is that you cannot do everything because it's just a overload of things,
Yeah.
and not many folks outside of artists or photographers will or videographers will understand that. Like we get tired sometimes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's a thing. Like when we were my first year and we were on a 28 game losing streak. I look back at that now and I'm like, interesting. How did I get through that? I don't know. I mean, there oddly enough, there was more storytelling in a losing streak than a win streak. And most people are like, how?
Wait, why do you think that is? Is it and what is the story you guys are telling on a losing season?
For me, it is a lot of facial expressions. It's a lot of body language. It's a lot of just the in between stuff that you just wouldn't think. You know what I mean? On a winning season, smiles are great, but it's like when we lose, like the other night we lost to Cleveland. And that was I always say like the losing games, like there's probably a little bit more personality because the guys are, they're high, they're frustrated, you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of things that can go on while losing a game, especially at the last minute. You know what I mean? There's a lot of expressions. There's defeat, like last season. Lost again to Cleveland on the last second buzzer beater, but like just the sure facial expression of AT Asar Thompson as Garland hit the shot, it's like, damn, that's the moment, right? I mean, we all can't get the high, action, especially in baseball, what Billy Weiss did for Red Sox for a very long time.
Yeah.
His work was just amazing, but I feel like um, sometimes you get the high moments and sometimes you don't. You know what I mean? Because in basketball, the game of runs, it's like, yeah, your team's up 13. Now we're down two. Now, so it's like that whole like ebb and flow of like
Yeah.
what can you capture?
Well, that's the best thing about sports, and it's really
Yes.
this kind of mimics life, like and you know this as a photographer. There's a lot of ups and downs. It's
Yeah.
it's sometimes you got a client, you got a job, sometimes you don't, and then it's the challenge of everyday shoot. So it's kind of do you appreciate that challenge now? Like obviously, yeah, I think it took me a long time to learn this. A lot of times, like you could look at like you got to shoot, and then it starts raining and you could look at the rain as like, oh, this is going to be bad for me, and now I try to look at it as like, oh,
I love it.
this is actually an opportunity to make a different picture. It might be a pain in the ass in the moment, but it's kind of embracing those challenges.
I kind of love rain, snow, whatever, simply because it adds a lot of like atmosphere to a photo. And then like depending on how the guy is walking, their stance, their pose, it just adds to it. And I love it. Like I mean, dare I say it, I'm not a baseball fan, but I do envy when there are rain delays and the players are just kind of like sitting up there like just talking,
Yeah.
because that's kind of the other fun side of baseball, right? It's, because if you go inning by inning and no one, hits the ball, what I mean, you're kind of just sitting there like, what is,
Yeah, that is the interesting about baseball too, is because you never know how long the game is going to be. It could be 2 hours,
right?
it could be under 2 hours or
Yep.
8 hours. It's like
Yep. Yep.
whereas basketball, you kind of know like this is what it's gonna be, and I mean sometimes the end of the games can drag on a little bit with the timeouts and shit, but it's
Yes, we've had essentially the game before last. It ended up to be like 3 hours because we had a the horn sound for 12 minutes. It's like, can we not figure this out? What's going on? Yeah, it was
uh,
very weird.
nah, that's amazing. And I guess to go back, like when you got that first job, you're working at the newspaper in New Bedford. Were you at that point, were you already taking pictures for yourself, this kind of learning photography, or like when did you kind of this learn this the craft of photography, I guess?
So at the end of college, I had done a couple of weddings. Not necessarily a wedding photographer, but at the time, like, it was good work,
Yeah.
and I kind of had said, as I start my career in graphic design, we're gonna put aside the camera. Um, that didn't happen because the moment I moved in to my first place in New Bedford, I saw this kid skating down the street, and I was like, "That's really cool." You know what I mean? Not a skateboarder, but I know I've collected lots of like Trans World and stuff like that back in the past,
Nice.
and I was just like, "Okay, so why can't I do this?" Well, couple things, you know what I mean? Like the first one is because I don't skate, you know what I mean? Like I don't know necessarily what I'm looking for. Now at the time, could you tell me that? No. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it was just I'm just gonna go out, I'm gonna try this, met some kids. Back in the day, Nick Dampier
Yeah.
was
Le
a big name in
Local legend.
skateboarding. Yeah, I think he's now in fitness.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, I was just looking for people to photograph skateboarding. And then BMX too, came up as well. So those first couple of years is really like, oh, I really like this action sports photography. Can I do this? A lot harder than you think. I mean, to get those connections.
It's very much the people that, because that's how I came up shooting skating. It's very much like the people that shoot skating and that's what they
Yeah,
do. That's really all they do. And
yeah,
it's a
yeah,
very tight-knit community.
yeah.
It is a hard thing to kind of tap into. And even harder now because there's only like one magazine left. It's Thrasher, and then that's there's a couple like by like smaller magazines that are around. But yeah, it's very different now.
Like I remember meeting. I think I was shooting the Street League in New York, what 2012, and I met Atiba Jefferson there.
Yeah, yep.
You know what I mean? Like it was very like it was cool. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't making much money, but like it was just a cool experience to be like, oh, okay, this is what it's like to actually be at an event, capture this X, Y, and Z. Again, restrictions at events are crazy, and you're like, oh, okay, I can't go in that area, I can't go in that area, so I have to shoot from back here. So I think, you know, along with that whole journey thing of learning, kind of in the moment or with the experience, it's like that was a teaching lesson for me. Um, I still love skateboarding. Every now and then when I go out to Santa Monica, you'll see me at, Venice, shooting whoever is skateboarding,
Yeah.
and that's fun. You know what I mean? Like it's not, I won't say it can never be a thing, but it could. But also like I know the people like Giovanni Retta and whatnot, like they live it, they breathe it, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and I admire those people that have stayed in really one genre. I know Tiba has done NBA as well. But he's a legend for skateboarding.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You know what I
Um,
mean?
yeah. And then so I guess like you said you thought like when you started that job you needed to put the camera down. At what point were you like, okay, I'm going all in on this photography thing? Was it were you just kind of following your kind of intuition and gut at that point
I think
or
a year and a half in. Um, because, once I was talking to the guys, I literally called my father and I was like, hey, like I think I want to do photography. So anyway, I can get some money to buy some equipment. Like legit. Like I'm thankful, to my parents who you know, had full-time jobs all my life, all my youth and whatnot, and they saved well and whatnot. So, you know, they prepared and they basically said, yeah, just take care of your money. But yeah, so I went out and I bought $4,000 worth of equipment.
Damn, what was that first
And
camera?
first camera was a Canon EOS 7D,
Nice, that's a good
and
one.
then I bought a 5D original off of Peter Pereira. Um, Man, that camera was a beast.
Oh
But
yeah, that 5D and then the 5D Mark II, that was just a camera. There's like certain cameras that come out and it's just the game changed after that, and then
yes.
yeah, that was an era.
Yeah, so like between the 5D and 7D, like I was golden, had a couple lenses. I think I had started off with the 70 to 204, had like 2470, like that type of stuff, and just kind of went out and just started taking photos. And then because I like to travel, just would hop across the country every now and then. So like San Francisco, New Orleans, New York was 2.5 hours away. So I was out and about, and that was really the thing that I loved over the job. You know what I mean? Like, and most people knew that.
Yeah.
So I think once that got going, and once like I was like in it and shooting, people's like I was shooting for my church at the time, which I'm just like, wow. I look back at it and I'm just like the amount of crazy things that I did, in such a short amount of time, um, was just
And that's how you get
mind
good.
blowing.
That's how you get good. I think
Right.
anybody who goes down this career path, you have to be somewhat like insane.
You have to be somewhat insane, and you have to be somewhat risk taker as
Yeah.
well, because street photography, don't do much of it nowadays, but like even back in the day, like I started as like shooting street photography. Met some people on Flickr,
Oh
had a
yeah,
little group, you
Flickr.
know what I mean? Like, so a lot of my early stuff was street photography. And then like I just remember hanging out in San Francisco and walking the streets at 2 a.m. in the morning and just randomly talking to people. It seems very like, what in the world were you thinking now? But that's kind of how I got, I guess the courage to just go up and talk to people and take their portraits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And were you just kind of like learning from trial and error, or was it this kind of YouTube university, just learning the technical aspect of photography, or how did you kind of learn all that aspect of it?
So technical wise, I talked to Peter quite a bit. He was like, I would show him pictures, he would critique them. And then when I was in New York one time, I met up with Michelle Egan's from the New York Times. And, I know I was like, New York Times, huh? Because I just didn't know much about bigger newspapers and what their newsrooms look like. I guess at the time, there probably had to be like 20 staffers, a lot different nowadays.
Yeah.
But Michelle was one of the first to cover the WNBA, and she did a whole like story on this and whatnot. And so like just from that interaction to meeting another photojournalist, and suddenly, um, I became admired with the work that they did, which as a young creative, even today, be aware of trying to compare yourself or trying to shoot like somebody else. Because at the end of the day, you're gonna shoot like you. You can take, different traits from what they've done, but always try to make it you. And I think that's something that I learned probably 7 or 8 years in. Because comparison is
Yeah, and it's
it's a
just
thing.
yeah, the people that you're looking at, you look up to, whose work you respect. It's
Yeah.
great to get that inspiration, but then you have to remind yourself you're looking at the finished product of like a 20-year career, 30-year career, where it's like when you're just starting out, like you're at this point, and the work you're making now, you're only making that work now because you've been at it for as long as you have, and like gone, shot the weddings, shot the church
Right.
stuff, shot the university stuff, and it was just a longer. It's always a way longer journey than you think it's going to be.
Yes. And, knowing people, while that is great, doesn't always get you in the door. And so it's always just finding the one person that's going to believe in you and kind of get you in the door and allow you to create. And so I've been lucky over my career to probably have three or four of those people. In the sports world, Whitney Halleck, who is now I think she's director of marketing at the Broncos, is her title. But, it literally took all the PJ stuff, all the higher education stuff, and then a little bit of the fitness stuff to basically be like the repetition can translate into sports. And it did, you know.
A- And for you as a woman working in sports, you've been at this for a while.
Yeah.
Has it evolved since you've got into shooting sports as a profession? Because looking back at the old days of like Sports Illustrated, it was all guys. There wasn't really you seeing a lot of men. Was that ever like a deterrent for you to get in the business? Was it like a thing? I guess being a woman in this business, how was it like when you first got in, and I guess now?
When I first got in, I really didn't care. And so most people be like, "What do you mean you didn't care?" What I don't think you get into something and you're like, "Oh, this is why I'm in it," until you're actually in it and then you hear other comments, right? For me, earlier in my career, I really didn't see people as different. Like when we talk about the whole race thing and whatnot, um, I didn't see any of that. Most people are like, well, how do you not see it? Again, when you're like concentrated and focusing on just trying to get through and, work towards your goal, you're never really gonna see race or see, oh, this is male dominated. You're just going to see your peers on the sidelines, kind of working with you. Kind of also, majority of my career, it's been mostly men who have kind of guided me and gave me encouraging messages, to be very honest.
That's good.
So while there is a lot of women that I'm sure that have gone through things, right? That's not necessarily my experience. And, even if it had been, I think it's all part of the journey. I think it's just learning how to like be in that setting without feeling like you have to be someone else.
Yeah, definitely. And I was interested in talking to you about you also worked I think at a couple different universities as like a
Yes.
staff university photographer, which I always thought I've worked for universities but never been a full-time guy. But it
Yep.
seems it seems like an interesting job because you get to shoot a lot of different stuff, I would imagine. How was your kind of experience getting to be a full-time university photographer? I think at Eastern Kentucky University, right?
Yeah. So I was in the PJ job and things weren't going well. It was like I was doing too much instead of everything that I wanted. So from time to time you just apply for jobs.
Yeah.
So I got an email and I'm like, Eastern Kentucky University, where is this? Did I apply for this? You know what I mean? Because I'm like, Kentucky. Okay. And so they flew me out and they had me in for an interview and whatnot. It's probably the first time I've been flown out to do anything. Go figure. 'Cause I was just like, really? This is the thing? Okay.
Yeah.
Um, but it was like, okay, this is cool. I can do a lot. I can do a lot here. You know what I mean? At the time, I was big into making booklets. I'm still big into making booklets, and I made a portfolio booklet, and I basically showed that to the director at the time, and he was like, this is what I want you to do for us." You know what I mean? Like because that first portfolio booklet was very, I mean, it took you through every facet that I had shot at the time. It was very colorful. And so that's where the graphic design skills also come back into play. It's laying out booklets and page layout is my favorite thing of the design element part. So I had done that, gotten into that, and so it was one of those things of like I don't know what to expect, but let's just do it. Let's just see where this goes. And it's probably the best 2.5 years of my life because I got a chance to not only do work but also do the sport of CrossFit for about 2.5 years. And then meet my partner. So it was all like, I don't know what I'm doing here, but apparently this is why I'm here.
It,
You know what I mean? Like you just,
that's
it's the most random thing ever. And you're just like, okay, I didn't
that
have this one plan.
that's how I was like researching you for the interview, and I was like looking at your LinkedIn and this looking at everything you've done. Like the way I read into it is it's like you kind of just like welcome different opportunities. Like you've done so many different things, worked at different newspapers, universities, different sports, all teams, and have you always just been kind of open-minded to letting new opportunities kind of come your way?
I mean, the weird thing about it, and I try to tell young people this all the time, is like it is okay to have a destination in which you want to be in, but also be open to the destinations that you probably have no idea about.
Yeah,
Because they could be the best, and they can, you can find yourself in a different trajectory, but also meeting people that you thought you would never meet. So while the big cities are great, I mean, I kind of like and my partner always said, like, I'm like, I don't live in the middle of nowhere, to be very honest with you. Like, go at my house when I want to, set up shoots, you know what I mean? Like that's just me.
yeah.
Like, if I had to, because people are like, oh, what's the next goal? And I'm just like, creative direction, but
Ex
like also kind of sort of working for myself and working with unique brands that I like. I think when you're younger, you are forced to work with folks that, it may not necessarily be your cup of tea. So you just kind of just try to fit into the box at the time. Now it's more so, well, who do I want to work for? And especially with a lot of the shoe stuff, it's like I like this sector, but how do you get in? Because so many people do it and so many people have their own story behind it, but I also bring a different perspective and a different story, but not a sneakerhead. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
there are people that are really gung ho into that, and I am gung ho into it, but I'm just sitting here like I can't buy every Jordan that comes out.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, like great shoes, but you know how much some shoes are?
Yeah. Wait, we'll put it out in the ether. We got to get that Nike plug for you, and then uh,
Yeah.
and then I guess what does a day to day of a like a university photographer look like when you're working there? Like what kind of stuff are you making? What kind of
Whew.
projects are you working on? Because I would imagine it's kind of probably pretty vast on the imagery you're making.
It is vast. There are days where you're on campus early, depending on the sunlight, and if you're trying to capture something campus beautiful, kind of a featurey type of thing. There are days where you're doing press for the actual online magazine. There's also alumni magazine. There's athletics, right? I don't think they have athletics photographer now, but they have a digital person who kind of fills that role. But again, when you're at a mid-sized university, a lot of that falls back on the university photographer. So I did a little bit of athletics. You had your music, you had your alumni, you have your regular events, you have your presidential events. So it's a little
Portraits.
bit of everything.
Yeah.
And that's probably one of I tell people this all the time, like to actually have a university president that knew your name, very fond of the work. That's very rare nowadays because not a lot of people are face to face,
Yeah.
right? Or a lot of people, they have boss, and so it flows through their direct boss and then down. So getting to know Michael Benson was hella amazing. Great dude. So yeah.
And for you, the thing that's interesting thing about your work is you do a lot of different types of photography. You do obviously your sports photography, you do portraiture, still life. Like, have you ever felt like you needed to like have one niche, or have you always just kind of enjoyed working that way where you kind of do a lot of different types of photography, I guess?
To keep myself creative, that is why I do a lot of different types of photography. I think the niche, if you're really good at it, yes, that could be great. But I also feel like that can pigeonhole you. I think someone who comes to mind that I mean is really great at what he does is Tim Tatter. You know what I mean? Like I think he was the first one of the first ones with the whole AI thing and the water wigs and all that stuff. And so yeah, like folks like that, I mean, they have a niche, that's what they do. For me, if shoes become a niche, so be it. You know what I mean? But like I'm kind of looking to live in the moment, so it really depends on what happens. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you ended up after I think Eastern Kentucky, you went and you were the team photographer for the San Jose Sharks in the NHL. How'd that kind of come about? Was like hockey something you had ever photographed before, or like how was that kind of whole experience?
So in between that, obviously COVID happened. Um, Worked a little bit at Purdue, was laid off because as a new hire, you're the first person to be let go.
Yeah.
Um, so that was not fun, but in trying to figure out the next move, and try to like figure out how to get into sports. I had applied for a lot of sports jobs in the past, like knowing that, yeah, they probably don't see my work as sports in particular, which is fine. But when I worked in Logan, Utah for iFit, the one thing that I took upon myself is we had um, a black sweep that most of the athletes who were on set, we would come, we would do their portrait and whatnot, and I would learn more lighting. Okay, and then also, I guess it wasn't that big a deal back in the day for me, but archiving, photo editing, that became a big thing during that job as well. So learning all those little pieces, we're like, okay, well, I think I have enough to be like, let's apply for some jobs. I applied for the Sharks job in my mind thinking, yeah, this is, they're not gonna think highly of this resume. Simply because it's hockey. And at that moment, I think it's still, but hockey wasn't as diverse. I know there were a lot of initiatives going on, but like like they're gonna look for the male, you know what I mean? Photographer. But so I applied, I got the first interview, got a second interview, and then the third, which I had to do from my car. I was at work and I was like, okay, I usually have a 30-minute break in between sets. So I had to do the interview for my car and it had to be with, the CMO and and, I just tried to like one last time be like, this is why I really want the job. You know what I mean? Like I had no idea what was going to happen past that. But,
What was it? Well, yeah, this is actually good, I think, valuable information. So when you're getting asked this question for you're interviewing for a job like this, what did you say to him? Like, you want this job? Like, what was the pitch on your end to get that job, you think?
um, I think the pitch on my end was, and it wasn't even to be the first because I did not know at the time of the interview that I would be the first. But I think it was just to be the unique photographer that could shoot great stuff for a hockey team. Photographer before Brandon Magnus, great dude, great photographer, and really interesting of why he left. But like just seeing his work was like, okay, can I elevate it? You know what I mean? Not trying to like throw shade on another photographer, but you're always trying to find ways to be like, okay, can we do this better? Can we think of other ideals? Like, what is the flow?
Yeah,
And
put
so
your
most
touch
of
on
my,
it.
huh?
Put your touch on it.
Exactly. So most of the questions was like, well, what are you guys wanting to see? How different of content would make the Sharks stand out, even though they were a sucky team at the time. They are currently in a playoff hunt right now, which is great to hear. But at that time, it was more so about you still had players like Brent Burns there. So like that was like the first person I was like drawn into. So I was like, who is this Grizzly dude with his beard and whatnot? And so I just kind of sold it as, hey, I bring a very unique perspective. And I think my past experience would help me kind of lead and also mentor part-time photographers because at EKU, I had 4 students underneath me. And that at the time, I was like, oh, I have 4 students. What? Okay, I have to, this is part of the job. All right. So while I was here, I did okay at that job of like managing. It wasn't necessarily the best. So I knew like with this job, like I could do that and do it a little bit better.
Yeah.
So
No, that's
luckily, with the references and all that stuff, because actually some of my references called me and they're like, oh yeah, I just talked to so and so, and I'm just like, oh, what does that mean? Okay. And I got the job. And
that's
so I
amazing.
got to San Jose, and it was still technically during the COVID times. You had to wear a mask. Most people weren't reporting to the office. And so just imagine this big Shark Tank, just kind of empty. Like the first time I walked in, it was very empty, very like dungeon-like, you don't have any windows, you're down in the basement, your office. But it was like yeah, this could be a great job to have.
Yeah.
And what it turned out to be was not just a great job, but it turned out to be me mentoring, 3 others and the one guy having a team photographer position now. And so there are a lot of, small victories that people don't necessarily look at, but those are a couple of the small victories, as well as developing a content series, that kind of like gave you the artist perspective of like sharply dressed, which what they have done now to it, great. You know what I mean? So like just to see the progression of like what I started into now has been great. So a
No,
lot a lot of the little stuff.
no, that's amazing. It's good advice because interviewing for jobs is like a skill in itself. Like really like doing it or even the pitching projects. So I mean that's really good information. And I guess working with San Jose Sharks. That seems, I always thought, I never shot hockey, but it seems like it's got to be one of the most difficult sports to photograph because there's like the boards, the glass, you're kind of like confined in where it's at. Like,
Yep.
how do you kind of approach hockey and like, how would you describe photographing hockey, I guess?
I've never photographed NHL hockey before that point. The only thing I had photographed was high school hockey at the York Dispatch. And that was not, I mean, that was a crappy lighting, arena, and you're just sitting there trying to get someone skate and focused, you know what I mean? But other than that, like when you actually get to ice level, the amount of light that comes off the ice,
Hmm.
um, allows you to be like, okay, so I can shoot fast. Again, tracking the puck, kind of tricky. But the thing I did was anticipation. Because if you just go off where the puck is going, like you're gonna lose it, and then you're gonna be like, wait, they scored. Why am I over here? And they're celebrating over here. So I remember the first shot that I was like, okay, yeah, I can probably do this. Thomas Hurdle scored a goal, and how they skate around the edge, and he just went like this, and I just remember like getting that shot of him like with smiling, whatnot, and I was like. We're good.
Yeah, you start to know your spots, like where you can, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because there are photo holes in hockey,
Hmm.
and a lot of the rules kind of advanced during my time. Like it was like, oh, you got to cover the photo hole during this time, and then it became a thing of if the puck is in your area, you got to close the photo hole. I'm like,
And for people listening, a photo hole is a round circle cut in the glass in the rink. Like,
and for people also listening, Olympic hockey is different because they shoot through glass because European they don't have photo holes over there.
mm.
And we actually did a couple games over in Europe, so Prague and Germany. And that's how I know that because they do not have photo holes. You're just shooting through glass, and hopefully, I mean, yes, most of the glass is kept up more so than over here. But again, like when you got scratches and glass and whatnot, sometimes it's very hard to focus. But photo holes, great. Just don't get hit by a puck because that does happen too.
Yeah. That's incredible. And then I guess how's it being that you've worked in two different professional sports leagues, NHL and now with the NBA, like how different are the leagues? Like obviously NBA, I believe is a lot bigger than the NHL. I guess how's your kind of experience working with two different teams in professional sports realm, I guess.
I would say I've always admired the NBA, even back to days of like the NBA on NBC. I know they've brought it back this year, but that used to be the thing that me and my cousins used to watch, and we used to go over my auntie's house, and back in the day, 90s, early 90s, you just never forget that feeling of watching basketball. And so I had wanted to work in the NBA, as I said, like I don't think I ever would have moved back home as soon. That wasn't the plan either. But it came open, and I was like, okay, let me apply for it. Now, tricky thing about applying for an NBA job is that, you just every team is different in how they set things up. So for some teams, aka like the Spurs, Reggie is a historian here. So he's mainly capturing photos of just players, player-led kind of initiatives. Um, the Pistons is a little bit of everything, but over time, again, with the winning and the success of the team, I think you've kind of got to make sure you're not setting yourselves up for failure or overdoing it to where burnout is a thing. And I think there's been more burnout in NBA than NHL simply because of the amount that I travel versus the amount that I travel with the NHL. I think I did maybe 15, 16 games each of the NHL season of traveling. And now I do the majority of traveling.
Wow,
So
so you go to all the away, damn, that's impressive. Because I know MLB, a lot of it they don't. It's they the home games. Yeah.
It's a lot of baseball
Yeah,
games.
it is a lot. It is true. It's like yeah, 80 away games.
I mean, like,
I didn't think of that. Yeah.
nah, but like, the whole 82 game seasons. I always said because from most people think that basketball was my first love. It was not. It was actually soccer.
Okay.
So, with the whole basketball thing, it's very easy to kind of shoot a game, especially if you have a spot on court. If you don't have a spot on court, elevated is kind of the way that you shoot it. And I kind of love both because that provides you a different perspective. And then depending on the arena, you can get even more creative. But again, the tight restrictions in some of these arenas are just absurd. And you really can't do much. Like MSG is one of those arenas that you're sitting there like, this sucks.
Oh, so they just at MSG they give you your spot and you can't like you got to stay there.
So during a regular season, we normally get a quarter or half because they don't have all their floor spots available.
Yeah.
Um, and then for playoffs, we got nothing. So we basically had to shoot from the elevated spot. And it's a
Damn,
typical
so if your team's in the playoffs, you don't even get a spot.
at MSG, no.
Oh wow. Yeah, because everything just goes NBA, Getty,
Well,
like
not 90, I wouldn't always say NBA because even, the NBA gets annoyed with MSG and their rules. But you know what I mean? Like I understand the reason for the rules and what may have happened in the past with the owner and all that stuff.
yeah,
But, I just wish because it's really none of the people that work there that put the rules in place. They just have to enforce them.
yeah.
So usually, and I don't think they travel anybody when they come to other arenas too. So, it kind of makes up because you're like, hey, at least at home I get to stay on the court for 4 quarters. But it's a different
Challenge.
atmosphere, you
Have you
know.
have you photographed what's that new stadium? Is it the Clippers? The Steve Ballmer?
Yes,
Have you
yeah.
photographed there yet?
That, the one thing about that stadium, Intuit, or arena, is that as futuristic and cool as it is,
Yeah.
it's it's hard to shoot wide, especially with the video board, right? So I feel like you almost have to be a little too creative. to shoot in that arena. Like everything else is minimalistic. So
Because
the
what is
hallway.
it? What is it about? Why is it difficult? It's just like,
I mean, so depending on the vantage point, in most arenas, right, we'll have stairs here and here and here, kind of straight up and straight down.
yeah,
They oftentimes don't leave space around the floor to move easily.
okay,
Um, and so it could be challenging, especially when you don't have a floor spot of where to shoot, because the basket, I think most of the media spots, so where our social media team sits, right, it's at an angle. Sometimes that's not usually the best shot, even if you're in the secondary seat. So I usually move around quite a bit and I try to like create some type of creative shot, even though for me, I haven't really figured out into it because I've only been there twice. But yeah, I mean, it's a very minimalistic arena. You know
yeah.
what I mean? Like it's futuristic, it's great, but still haven't figured out how to really shoot in it.
How different arena from arena is like the lighting? Because I know
Very
with basketball, you guys have like strobes above, right? Like they're like rigged in.
NBA and Getty will do strobes.
Okay,
Not all in-house will do strobes simply because of the time and effort that it takes. In hockey, I did strobes and I did a remote. NBA is a little bit different because you already have about 8 cameras in remotes. So you basically try to do something different than those outlets do. And so that's why I've kept it mainly just natural light, whatever the arena gives you. Again, one of the worst arenas with lighting is MSG, uh, orange and blue skies, you know what I mean?
Amanda do not like MSG. If we learned anything from this, I'm just kidding.
Orange and blue skies, man. That's
Yeah,
all you see. And I'm just like, you get this orange tint, and it's a hard arena to shoot in.
yeah.
It's very iconic, yes, but it's a tricky arena to shoot in.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
one thing I wanted to ask you, I guess being that you've been able to build a successful career photographing sports, you two different sports leagues, and you've been doing this for a while. Like, what advice would you give to someone who, it's their dream, they want to shoot professional sports? Like, what would you say to them? How do they get their foot in the door? Like, what kind of advice would you give to someone that's trying to get their first opportunity?
Honestly, nowadays it's really about content creation. And most people are like, yeah, but you don't agree. It's like, no, I don't necessarily agree with the whole content creators nowadays, right? I think there are some advantages and there's a lot of disadvantages to it as well because everybody thinks that they can become a good photographer. Um, and some of them are. But I would say if you're trying to get into sports nowadays, that is a must between shooting photo and video and doing phone stuff, social media wise. Also, if you know a player, they're in college or they're in high school and you know they're gonna make it big, it's always a great thing to like cover and follow that player
Yeah.
because you never know, you can become their personal content person when they make it big. So those are really the two routes. I think, if you're gung ho into news and whatnot, there is still photojournalism out there. It's just very tricky because there's been a lot of layoffs. That world is changing what it seems like every day. But that is a route too. The other route is photo editing. You know what I mean? To get your foot in the door. It's not always the most enjoyable thing,
Yeah.
but that's one way to learn what organizations, what outlets look for. So yeah.
Because with the Pistons, do you guys have like I'm guessing a lot of the sports teams do have like dedicated like social media content creators that are making iPhone content, video photos, and putting into reels. Is that like a how like big teams that are doing that?
So for us, so when we're at games, we normally have me, the photographer, producer, and then a social person. The social person is getting plays with their phone.
Mm,
So most teams have more, because that, I mean, their budgets are bigger,
yeah,
but this is what we do here. And I mean, I don't think it's bad. It's pretty typical.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's cool. And I just want to bring up one shoot. I think you did last year. You got to photograph a cover for Slam magazine, which
Yes.
legendary magazine. I guess how'd this kind of opportunity come about for you, and like how do you kind of approach photographing this cover for Slam?
So honestly, with this, I literally found out about it maybe 3 days before the shoot. And I, at first I was like, wait, Slam, really? Can I do this? Is this possible? Because always when I go on shoots nowadays, it's like, is this practical? Do I have the time, do enough research to make the shoot work? Luckily, I had a friend in Ann Arbor, and I called her, and she was happy to shoot. Let me use her lights, ordered a backdrop, made sure they were okay with the color. Adam Thigman was on site for this, and we just kind of, basic poses. He was there to help, which is great. Jamie was there to, help out with lighting as well. And so really it was really teamwork. And then when I had time to do a little bit of creativeness with shoes, obviously, I did because this is the first time since the Fat Five that they brought the all black shoes back,
Oh wow.
black socks. So that was a nod to the Fat Five. So this was a great shoot. Hope they do well in the tournament this year. I'm rooting for them. They're once number one, but in March anything can happen. So
It's true.
yeah, I mean, but yeah, this was a chance of a lifetime. Um, Grateful to do a couple covers and hopefully more to come.
And were you like actively like promoting your work to Slam, or was that this these kind of this?
So they had done a couple things with the Pistons, and normally their thing about it is like they want to still give you that slam feeling. So bringing in other photographers, Matthew Coughlin being the photographer that came up for both times for during and Cade. And I just kind of just watched what he did the first time he came up, was asking questions. I've known Matt um, online for about 13 years. It's kind of crazy. I've followed his career ever since his kind of start. And it was just great to meet him, great to see what his process was. And so then I can kind of translate that over to if I ever got to do one, I would know what exactly they want. So yeah, that's kind of how it all started. Didn't meet Adam until the day of. So I think it's just a matter of, hoping that whenever your name is called, you can provide, whatever they need. And then if, there are edits that need to happen, you can provide that as well, but always being ready.
Yeah. No,
So
that's amazing. I mean, Slam. I've been grew up looking at that and like all the amazing covers. So that's like a real accomplishment and respect to that. I guess for you, moving forward, I guess what's next? Like you've accomplished a lot. You've been shooting so much stuff, but like what keeps you inspired, excited about photography, and kind of any goals for moving forward? I guess.
I think moving forward, because I know so many photographers and because I have done a lot of portfolio reviews, even though, at times I'm like, what? You just kind of jump in and you kind of do your thing. But those have been kind of fun to see students' works and how they may or may not have developed, what their next steps are, how their thinking is so different than when I went to school. So I think, something more on I think I am already a mentor to quite a few people, but staying on the mentor path. And as I've told my buddy at Westcott, one of these days I want to be the person hiring other photographers. And most people are like, yeah, but you're a good photographer. I don't know. There's just something about working in tandem with other photographers that I feel like just taking a step back and watching what they do and doing more directing is kind of in the future. Um, and then, of course, if I can bring in someone that I know can get the job done, even better. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? But I think that's future wise. And then, whatever happens with the shoe project, um, yeah, we'll see.
Well,
I never like to say this, that, but
yeah.
you know,
No, it's exciting, well, Amanda, I really appreciate you taking the time, and it was really great talking to you about your work. And I'll definitely let people you can follow you on Instagram, and I'll link it on the when I release this. But thanks so much.
thank you for having me.
So there you have it. That was the Amanda J. Cain interview. Just want to thank Amanda so much for taking the time to come on the podcast. It was a real pleasure talking to her about her amazing journey with photography and everything she's accomplished in the course of her career. Definitely go check out more of Amanda's work. You can follow her on Instagram at Amanda J. Cain. I'll put all her links in the show notes, so definitely go give her a follow and check out more of her work. And also, I have to mention, as I did at the beginning of the show, with today's episode, if you enter the promo code BANTER, you'll get 2 months free for all first-time users of the PicDrop image transfer tool. All you got to do is go over to picdrop.com, enter the promo code BANTER, and you'll get 2 months free. Or you can click the link in the show notes as well. And as always, thanks so much for listening, and take care.